Hi guys, it's me Edem. Today I will recap the anime titled Berserk of Gluttony. But before that, please subscribe to help me reach 2,000 subscribers. The story starts with a mysterious dude who's fighting goblins, like it's no big deal. Who is this guy? Then the story goes back in time to before the Goblin Massacre. A merchant cart was carrying some goods when it was attacked by a group of goblins. The goblins jumped onto the cart, but luckily, the same adventurers were nearby. Their leader rode a horse to protect the archer while he shot down the goblins. The long-haired dude easily dealt with some monsters with his quick and smooth skills, while the huge dude did his best impression of Hulk smash with his double-handed axe. After that, they returned to the city. Back in the city, there's a very hungry-looking guy guarding the city gate. So, the name of this hungry dude is Fate Graphite, and yeah, he's the main character in this anime. When Fate heard some adventurers talking about defeating the goblins, he just fell silent because he didn't think he could do it. All he felt was hungry, and it's all because of his weird skill, gluttony. Meanwhile, in the center of the city, everyone was getting out of the way of 3 holy knights. People bowed down to them because they were terrified of how cruel they were. Just because an orange accidentally rolled to one of their feet, the owner of the fruit was scared that the knights would execute him. Luckily, one of the 3 rotten knights forgave him, but he warned him not to do it again. Unfortunately, the 3 rotten knights approached Fate. We cut back to our useless protagonist Fate, who's still complaining about his hunger. Luckily, his shift is almost over until the trio arrives. They ask if Fate did a proper job to fill in for them today. Fate lowers his head and confirms he did. The leader of the trio then drops a few coins on the floor as payment and tells Fate to pick it up. Fate complies and slowly starts picking the coins up. But one of the holy knights steps on his hand. He starts insulting Fate, saying that he's so filthy that he didn't notice him. And as you expect, Fate is a bullied person who has no way to fight back. His stomach makes noise again, making the leader of the trio mad. He claims that this noise makes it seem like they don't feed him. They ask if Fate is trying to embarrass the Vlarik family and kick him away. The guy kicks Fate a few more times, and the girl joins in. She starts calling Fate's skills useless, and says that he only survives because they give him money. In his mind, Fate explains that in this world, everyone's worth depends on the special power they got from gods, called skills. The trio leader claims that if Fate slacks off, the result will reflect on them, his employers. The guy then orders Fate to get up, but when he tries, the other guy steps on his face and asks him to hurry up. Then, in the middle of it all, another knight showed up. She was totally different from the 3 jerks. Her name is Roxy Hart. Even though she told the 3 jerks to stop bullying Fate, they just said that's how they discipline their men. After the 3 trash NPCs left, Roxy immediately went to Fate and helped him up. She even helped him clean the tomato juice off his face. Once he was somewhat clean, Fate thanked her. Roxy then asked Fate to take turns guarding the gate with her. She was so worried about him that she even asked him to tell her if the 3 knights oppressed him again. But of course, Fate wasn't going to do that. No way a guy would spill his guts to a woman. Long story short, Fate was eating at his favorite restaurant. The bartender there knew Fate had been bullied again, and he was worried that Fate would end up like the other guys who had the job before him. After leaving the restaurant, Fate was still hungry, even though he had just eaten. He wished he didn't have the gluttony skill, which was just a curse. He didn't want to be a holy knight, he just wanted to live a normal life. Not long after, Fate saw some thieves sneaking into the palace. He immediately told Roxy. She took off after them, leaving Fate in charge of the gate. When the fighting stopped, Fate thought Roxy had taken care of all the thieves. So, one of the thieves got away. Fate was terrified, and he started to run. But then he remembered Roxy had left him in charge, so he stopped and fought the thief. He was still scared, but he managed to beat the thief. Then, something weird happened. Fate's gluttony skill activated, and he suddenly gained the skills Identify and Telepathy. He was confused. A few minutes later, Roxy came running. She was worried about Fate. Fate was surprised because he could hear Roxy's thoughts. Roxy wanted to report the incident to her superiors, but Fate asked her not to mention his name. He didn't want to get in trouble. Roxy was still grateful to Fate, so she offered him a job working for the Hart family. She also offered to help him deal with his problems with Vlariks. Fate was torn. He didn't know if he wanted to work with the 3 trash knights or with the beautiful Roxy, but he was worried about who would replace him if he left. Roxy assured Fate that Holy Knight would take over his job, and she would handle everything with Vlerix. In the end, Fate decided to work for Roxy. Fate was stoked to see his stats had shot up to 3 digits, and he had 2 new skills, Identify and Telepathy. He was baffled about what was going on with his body. He felt like with stats like that, he might actually be able to take on some monsters. The next day, Fate went to the market to buy a sword. He only had 2 silver coins though. He was so poor, it was tragic. The merchant said he couldn't buy a weapon with that. All he could get was a weapon from the trash bin. Fate decided he'd rather have something than nothing, so he started looking through the trash. They were all trash until he picked up one, and suddenly he heard a voice. Fate felt like the weapon was calling to him. The weapon said his name is Greed, and they had a lot in common. Then Fate bought the trash weapon for 2 silver coins. Mimiel was pissed that Roxy took Fate from them. She wanted to teach Roxy a lesson for being rude to the Vlerix family. Rafale, on the other hand, didn't think it was a big deal. He said that Fate wasn't important to them. The Hearts and the Vlerix were 2 of the 5 great families that supported the kingdom. Rafale then said that he was going to the military district. Rafale was interested in becoming immortal, but Mimiel laughed at him. On the other hand, Fate was still getting used to his new sword. When the sword warned him of incoming enemies, Fate panicked, but he quickly defeated the goblin that attacked him with a single slash. The sword's other voice, Greed, explained that Fate's Gluttony skill had activated and increased his stats, including giving him the Strength Boost skill. Fate was confused, but more goblins arrived. Greed laughed and said that goblins always came in groups. The goblins attacked Fate, but he parried and sliced them one by one, his Gluttony skill activating each time. After a few hours, Fate had defeated hundreds of goblins. He had gained a few more skills, and his stats were now incredibly high, with his lowest stat being nearly 500 and his strength being triple that. Greed asked if Fate was still hungry, and Fate realized that his stomach hadn't made a noise all day. He asked Greed what was going on, and Greed explained that it was all because of Gluttony. Normally, people had to fight and win battles to increase their stats or level up, but Gluttony was a cheat skill that stole the stats and skills of whatever Fate defeated. A person's skill cannot be changed since birth, but Fate's Gluttony skill allows him to gain new skills with the consequence of not gaining level up points. That's why he's stuck at level 1. Fate asked how Greed knew about this, and the sword explained that they were the same. Despite being confused, Fate noticed a group of adventurers approaching. Greed told him that he shouldn't let anyone know about his Gluttony skill, because it defied the divine law. Fate realized that this meant he couldn't party up and had to always fight alone. Greed said that Fate wasn't alone because he had Greed. Fate accepted this and decided to return to the city, but Greed stopped him and told him to collect the goblin's ears so he could sell them for money. Fate was reluctant, but he did it, a master and a strange weapon, and earned 3 silver and 80 bronze coins. After taking his reward, Fate planned to eat meat. However, Greed wanted himself to be cared for first like a gem. Suddenly, a man bumped into Fate. A little girl was with a suspicious man. She touched Fate and begged for help. Her eyes were shaking with fear, and the man pulled her away. Fate tried to use his skill to see the man's skills, but the information quickly disappeared. Greed explained that the man had a concealment ability that hid his skills from being identified. Greed asked what Fate would do, and Fate said that he would save the girl. The man took the girl to a warehouse and chained her to the wall. He started mocking her, saying that she would be abused by the Holy Knights. Fate was watching, but Greed stopped him from moving. Greed said that the man was stronger than Fate and that he should look away. But Fate wanted to help anyone he saw suffering, especially now that he had the power to do it. And episode 1 ends. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and see you on the next episode. Love you guys.